this.
Oh, it's good. I wasn't sure if it was something and not trusting my system. Sorry to interrupt everybody out there, but I don't want us to lose the recording.
Oh, okay, everyone, can we do a favor? Can we just give Elaine and Susan a round of applause and like a hug? And we're in this together. I think we're recording. This is being human in action, and isn't that just a wonderful experience sometimes? So, all good. All right, so I think I'm just going to take a quick check. I see on my end, uh, I think we're recording. I think we're recording. Okay. Let me just, yep, we are definitely recording. So confirm that we are recording. I'm going to go back to my share. All right. And we're going to go back into the presentation. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So wanting to make a difference in the world. How many of you want to make a difference in the world? I'm going to make an assumption that you all know that you make a difference in the world. You all feel genuinely invested in making a difference in the world because you're in insurance. And so when I hear people say, I want to make a difference in the world, I ask them, what's underneath that? Talk to me a little bit more about that. And often there is validation and confirmation. Well, I know that I do make a difference in the world, Jen, because I help people. I help my clients, I help the community. I know that insurance is a positive force because we're protecting assets, we're protecting people. I'm a good person. I bring a lot of value to my team, my company. I also am a thoughtful contributor and a thoughtful leader. So I know that I am, in essence, making a difference. And you don't need this reminder, but I'm still going to give it to us that this industry does a lot of good. And I want to remind us this because sometimes when we are in the grind of corporate, organizational business life, we can forget all the good things that insurance truly is offering to the world. So, a quick reminder that there's so many wonderful things that you all are out there doing. And as I was creating this slide, I had to stop myself and I was like, Jen, that's enough because I could have gone on and on with this list. You know, you are there, your organizations, your industry is there when there's a natural disaster and the community has to rally, when there's a family whose home is burnt down and needs to rebuild, when there are emerging talent and the need for mentors who truly care rise to the occasion, and of course, healthcare, helping people to navigate healthcare costs. There's a wide range of things that insurance shows up for and does really, really well for our community. And yet, and yet, I often see this quiet question, this quiet lingering, this quiet emergence of, is this it? Am I meant to be doing more or be doing something differently? And I want to make space for that question. You may or may not be facing that yourself, but you might have colleagues or teammates, employees who might be feeling a little conflicted with this. And because I continue to see this come up in so many spaces that I'm in, through my coaching clients, I'm an executive coach, through workshops and speaking engagements, when I'm sitting with senior leaders, listening to what they're hearing from their managers, this is a question that is on a lot of people's mind. Am I really making a difference? Does my time truly matter? Is this it? And so I want to call attention to the tension or the difference between the fact and the feeling. The fact is the logic. I know that I'm doing good work. I know that my industry and my company is contributing meaningfully to society. That is a fact. And yet, I can also sometimes feel that there is a question around, am I really making a difference in the ways that I can, that I should, that I want to? And so I'm about to say something that is a bit of a bolder mark, but there can be a hunger and a hollowness that comes from everyday work. And it's not the type of work that we do that I think drives this sensation. I think it's just the nature of being at an office job or professional work in general. So I really want to say that again and let that sit and settle. There can be a hunger and a hollowness that comes from everyday work. And so when I see people express that or resonate with that, I tend to go back to where does this come from? Why are we feeling this way? And I think about the evolution of work. These are a set of S words that I've developed, thinking back around the meaning and the purpose of work. If we zoom way out, we started to work through a barter system and then the currency system that we currently have to create enough exchange to have goods and services for our survival. That's the first S, survival. Over time, we had access to more. Most countries and cultures had access to more, which created a consistency or a stability. And then over time, we got into this phase of status. What is your role and your title? What kind of work do you do? What kind of industry and company do you work for? There was status or prestige that came alongside that. And then we entered this era of self-actualization. And we entered that big, I would say, around 2020. That's when obviously COVID swept the globe and we collectively started questioning our meaning and what we were doing with our lives and if we were using our time and energy well. And then in the past few years, I'd say really 2023 onwards, we swung into unprecedented amounts of stress. And so now we are pinched in this place between self-actualization of just a handful of years ago and stress. And I don't think that we need to say this is good or bad. Obviously, there's pros and cons, but just looking at it as it is what it is. And I think that it makes a lot of sense that we are feeling driven to find purpose and meaning when we just were in a phase of self-actualization, 2020-ish, and now we are in such a phase of stress. Both of those sides, meaning and purpose can be an anchor for both of those. One of my coaching clients said to me recently that he was disillusioned by the 2020 questioning of work. He said, I really thought that we were collectively going to be on our way to a different kind of working life work setting. We are talking about less burnout, regenerative workspaces, reducing toxicity, clearer communication, empathy, values aligned work. Now, the conversation really is focused on help me survive and learn coping skills to deal with all of the things that are driving the stress, like long work days, decision fatigue, demands that keep piling up from your senior leadership, agency owners. If you are senior leadership and agency owners, you know that those demands are coming from the market and from technology changes and from consumer needs and demands and expectations. There's a lot of fatigue, exhaustion that we're all feeling. And so when we're feeling all of that, it also makes sense that we want to reach for something that feels lighter and brighter, like meaning and purpose. And so some of the questions that I might hear from folks, again, you may or may not feel this yourself, you may or may not hear this from people around you, is am I really making a difference? Yes, I know my job is important. Yes, I know I'm doing a good job. I know my industry is serving the community well. But am I personally using my time and my talents well? Will the world be a better place at the end of the day when I move on from what I'm doing today? And there's so many things that I care about. You know, I care about less plastic in the ocean, saving endangered species, healthcare equity, balancing the gender gap in senior leadership. So am I really using my time and energy to address the things that sit on my mind and heart the most? And then I often hear people ask, should I take a career break? Should I take a pause, take a beat, step back, and reassess? And I have to tell you that this is something that typically happens for mid-career-ish folks. We often think of our younger generational friends as being the ones that are really driven towards meaning and purpose. From my view, I would say that tracks. And I also see a lot of people, particularly women, that are 35 to 55 that say, I've built a lot of skills. I have a lot of experience. I've worked on my connections, my executive presence, my reputation, and I'm feeling like there is something more that I could be doing to make the kind of impact that I want to be personally known for in the world. So then I have to ask myself, why do we feel this so much right now? Why does this conversation continue to come up again and again in today's era? And I think it's pretty clear. It's because we have access to so much information. We know this. We are flooded and inundated with information, not just a town or two over, but around the globe. And so we think, our nervous system feels the events from across the globe in a very real and precarious way. We also know that things are changing on our planets, and we want to be a change maker for those big things that are going to make a difference for the next generation or two. And there's so many options for work today. There's a million ways that you can create money to have a good life. So, with option also can become overwhelm. And I also know this for sure. Every client I work with at one point or another says, it's not the work that I am at odds with, it's the system of work. It's not having enough time for myself, not having enough time for my kids, my partners, my pets, travel, passions. I really want to make sure that at the end of my working eras, I feel like I completed the right things and I was honest with myself about what those things are. I really want to share that I'm not immune to this. I left my corporate career in insurance in 2018 to take a career break because I wanted to reassess what to do with the rest of my professional energy and chapters. And I decided to start my business because I wanted to fully focus on helping people succeed at work in a system that was just getting more and more frenzied and difficult to navigate. And inside of my own company, I still struggle with, am I doing the things I really want to be doing in this world? Should I be selling to partnering with more technology companies that are looking at social justice, climate change, etc.? That's where my heart is. And so I just want to share that I think at some stage of our careers, we will ask these kind of questions. And it's good to be aware of not only for yourself, but for your employees, for the people that you mentor, for your professional communities because I do see this being a widespread question that people continue to grapple with. So I want to actually take a pause before we go into what can we do. And I want to ask you to take a moment and reflect on what you've heard so far and share if you're willing to be vulnerable. Do you feel some of the things that you've seen and heard thus far? Is this completely different and new to you? Do you hear this in your companies, your teams, or when you're out at conferences? How's this landing so far? And we'll just put this into the chat. Definitely the themes are relevant and real. Hear it often. Yeah. I'm curious if you, first I'll say, definitely resonates with what I hear and feel. I'm hearing this everywhere. The struggle is real with all ages. Yes, yes. My second question is, do you encounter this as a manager, if you are a manager, from folks that you're managing, or from people that you're mentoring, if you are mentoring, or you might be a mentee who has heard this from your mentor? I also want to acknowledge something real, which is some companies, some cultures don't like talking about this out loud. They like to put it under the rug. I hear folks want to have a safe space to discuss this. And then I hear some cultures that say, well, if we talk about it, people will leave. They'll realize there's more options. Well, people already know that. We know that there's many options out there. I think the way that you can support people the most is by having open dialogue about this and creating a safe space to have constructive conversation. It is actually a strength, which is emotions. Yes. There's also a cultural difference to this because I work with a lot of multinational companies, and I would say that this probably is not surprising. The country that is feeling this the most is our country. And North America in general, I would say Canada is closely thereafter. But when I work with folks in India, Asia, Europe, South Africa, South America, this does exist. It's a global issue, but not to the extent that Americans are feeling this. And that's just something for you to know and to think about and to have in your back pocket. Okay, so I am going to go back to my share. I love having conversation, so I'm going to pause and then come back to the share a couple of times. All right. Okay. So what do we do? We know that this is a trend, a theme, a question sitting on many of our hearts and minds. So what do we really do about this for ourselves, our employees, our colleagues, our professional communities, maybe even your kids? And there's 5 points that I want to share with you. The first one is to accept reality, and this can feel like a hard pill to swallow, or maybe bitter medicine, or maybe not the best news. But the reason why I suggest really encountering the truth in accepting reality is because there's just so many things that we have zero control or influence over. If I could rewire the whole system of work and remold the way that we work, I sure would. I mean, that would be my mission on fire. But I can't do that. And so I have to coach folks inside of the system as it is and help them understand what reality is and help them to use their time and energy well into things that we can actually change. And so I think stepping back and remembering and helping your people to remember there are things that are just natural business stuff that we can't change and we can't influence, like organizational politics and budgets getting slashed and bad bosses, managers who don't have people skills, employees that are running wild and have a lot of emotional needs, technology changes that continue to just come so quickly, the market changing. These are all things that are status quo, table stakes, not going to change anytime soon, likely. And so we accept the world that we live in, maybe with a little bit of levity and humor as well. And then we hold space for the tension by having conversations with your people, by being honest. I also want to make a distinction here. Having a constructive conversation does not get into a venti, complaining place. I don't have a lot of patience for that. I coach my people to be compassionate and kind and present, but also not to waste time in a venti, complaining place. So we want to hold space for constructive dialogue around what does this mean for you? And then to name what you seek. When I work with folks that are deep into, am I doing the right thing with my life? I ask them, well, what are you solving for? What do you really want? And if they, oftentimes, they will sit back and reflect and say, I'm not really sure. Something just doesn't quite feel right. I know that I dream about teaching yoga on a beach in Thailand, or I dream about my career being on boards and volunteering my time and not needing to work for money. Okay, those are great dreams, but underneath that, realistically, what are you solving for? Is it more time with your family? Is it more time to have a passion project? Is it because you actually dream of having a side business and that's where your mind and heart wants to be building that business over here? What is it that you really want to be solving for? And is that realistic? Because I also work with a lot of people where when we bring in that point about reality and practicality, if a goal of yours is to put your two kids through college, then it might not be the right time to build that side business that you want to create for your full-time gig one day. And I'm not trying to get anyone out of the industry. I actually think that holding on to your full-time gig and making the most of it is the smartest career move right now. And I also love that you're all insurance. I grew up in insurance. I joined insurance when I was in 2007. And so, just to be very clear, I am not trying to move anyone but I do want the question around what are you solving for? Not what feels bad, what's the problem? What are you solving for that you wish were different? And then pair that with what's your legacy? At the end of, let's call it this decade, even 3 years, or your career altogether, what do you want to be known for? There's a lot of talk around personal brand. I also do some workshop on personal branding, but personal brand is your reputation. Your legacy is what you will be remembered and known for. And you can start defining, articulating, designing, living your legacy right now at any stage of your career. Being clear on your legacy is going to be a guidepost on what it is that you want to do and how you can bring meaning into your everyday existence. And then finding your 1%. This is where I want to take a moment and talk to you all again too. So I'm going to stop the share. Finding your 1% is where the rubber hits the road for most people because big shifts in our lives typically not available to most of us. But looking for how can I spend 1% of my time differently to make the kind of difference that I want, that's where we see the practicality. And so I'm going to pause there before I go any further, and I'm going to ask a few questions. If you could spend 1% of your time differently in a way that felt invigorating, satisfying, fulfilling, meaning making, just 1% of your time, what would you do differently? And I'll tell you what I would do differently. I would work with companies that are focused on really big, meaningful endeavors that are socially minded, socially responsible companies. It's actually a commitment that I'm making to myself over the next 12 months that 1% of my book of business will be giving leadership training, skills, and coaching to companies that are often not as well funded as the industries that I work in. But really, the point there would be for me to give back and to have my heart sing at the end of the day, knowing that I was teaching leadership skills to a company that is hyper focused on changing weather patterns or health equity globally. All right, some folks are weighing in here. I would work with teen girls to find self-love through the noise of the world. What an incredible gift to give girls. And I know that my teenage years were pretty wild internally, mostly. And so I think that's just such a wonderful gift and skill to give them. Career-wise, listening more to my agents and continuing to educate and provide solutions to gaps in knowledge. Barb, very practical and helping others. And Amy, mental health. Okay. Barb, personally, prioritizing peace and taking care of myself so I can take care of my family and agents. Barb, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Prioritizing peace for yourself, for your family, for the world. I'm really just curious and slowing down. Very good. Anyone else? I'd love to hear if you could change 1% of what you're doing to make a meaning in a way that you're not already doing it today, to elevate your satisfaction, to give back differently, what would that thing be? And being in the moment. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is not radically changing your schedules, not creating big initiatives that are going to be difficult to sustain. Actually, I'd create a foundation for disabled children who cannot afford the equipment and medical needs. That is a big goal and a beautiful, beautiful goal. And Lisa, quality time for my grandchildren. What strikes me is when I'm inside of these kind of conversations with folks that we all have something that is very near and dear to our hearts. And I have this, I guess, a side mission around bringing us together and saying, okay, this year we have 12 women who want to make a difference. What is our cause going to be? And I know a lot of you do that inside of your organizations. It's one of the things that I love and applaud the most about insurance is how community focused people are, giving time, energy, and money to causes in the community. And I also have this desire to bring us together so that Lisa's not doing it on her own and Ashley's not doing it on her own, but that we join forces and make meaning together inside of ways that maybe we don't get the same opportunities to do on our own. All right, one more person, one more share, 1%. Okay, so maybe I'll shift to a different question before we get back into the presentation, which is how do you bring this into your teams or your companies? Is there a way that you feel like you're already doing it really well, as in providing opportunities for charitable causes, providing volunteer days to your teams, or does it feel like that's lacking some for whatever reason? Maybe there's just a time constraint issue. But how do you bring in meaning making in ways that are not directly aligned to your work day to bring more fulfillment and satisfaction and impact to people's lives internally to your teams and companies? Mm, great. Amy, two committees, wellness, giving committee, great. Getting to know your team members personally, that's fantastic. That makes a big difference to the meaning and impact of people's lives and days. Has anyone thought about or heard from someone in your team or company or professional network that maybe I should go to a different industry? Maybe I should go to a different kind of company. Maybe my life would feel a little different or better if I worked for a B Corp or an NGO or a nonprofit or a socially minded company that is purely focused on an issue. Lisa says we provide opportunity, encourage our teams to volunteer with local organizations. That's great. My last point around the NGO, like should I move to an NGO, nonprofit, a different sector, a different kind of company, a company that's purely focused on social responsibility? This comes up a lot for folks too. And I'm going to tell you that rarely do I see someone actually make that shift. Because at the end of the day, work is work, and working in a professional capacity, regardless of the industry, brings a lot of that hollowness and hunger. And I'm not trying to be discouraging or negative. I think it's actually important that we just acknowledge that we're doing great work and it can feel a little hollow at times. There can be a hunger that we are trying to feed, and it's not going to feel that much different if I go to a nonprofit or NGO. I think that there's always space for that exploration if that feels aligned for some folks. But we really also want to acknowledge that organizational reality and focus on the good things. Okay, no more comments, and I'm going to go back to our share here. Okay. So I would really encourage you to find that 1%. Be clear about it. Be practical, be specific, and help your team members who are grappling with this find their 1%. Not 10%, not 20%, 1%. 1% is doable. 1% compounds over time. And so we want everyone to find that 1% and to move things toward that direction methodically and slowly. Because what I would love is to add the next S to the evolution of work. Again, I developed that, so I have the authority to decide which S word comes next. I would love for it to be success. We're moving from survival to stability to status to self-actualization to stress to, why not, success. And success, I think, is in a moment of being redefined. And I would really encourage each of you to define for yourselves today, what does success mean? Maybe there's a financial component. Maybe there is a energy component. This is how I feel, uh, and most of my days. Maybe there is a component of this is how I use my 1%. Success to me is being able to use that 1% in a capacity that lights me up, that brings me the kind of fulfillment that I feel deep inside my body, and that I know is doing the good that I don't always get to do in my day-to-day existence because we're working and we are busy doing really important things, but not always the type of things that we long for. And so, if we could move to success, that means that we all need to sit and reflect and be very specific, practical, and clear on what success means for us today and how impact and meaning is interwoven into that definition. A few practical ways to integrate impact. These are practices that I use with my clients when they are in this stage of questioning and looking for direction and meaning. There are a few very easy practical ways to track that and to stay connected to it. The one is what I call track the truth, which is taking 5 minutes every week, looking back at your week, and just jotting down how you were impactful. And you can make columns to determine what kind of impact you're having. How did I make an impact for one client? A different kind of impact, maybe that really stood out. How did I impact a colleague or an employee? How did I impact my partner at home or my kids? How did I impact someone in the community? Maybe it was unexpected and I had the opportunity to do something small that really made someone's day. And then how did I impact myself? Tracking the truth of how you're already making a difference in small ways that compound, or maybe even in big ways that you're just not giving yourself enough credit for, can help reinforce all the ways that we are making a difference for ourselves and for other people. And then maybe picking a client or a colleague that you want to recognize in a different way on a quarterly basis. Do something maybe unique and special and creative, something that you know will really strike that person deep on a personal level. You can also do a once a month reverse mentoring. I love this because I know that mentoring is very embedded into our industry, thankfully. And I know a lot of companies that are practicing reverse mentoring where the younger person teaches to the older person as well. Also, younger career, more mature in their career. There are things to teach one another. I think that a nice way to create meaning and impact for you and them is to host sessions where that becomes more integrated into your culture. And then a cause. Maybe there's an annual cause that is outside of your company. I know a lot of companies have causes inside of their firms, but maybe there's a cause that you want to take on. I heard a number of you talk about your 1%. So why not take that on as an annual cause, or maybe a piece of that? Some of your goals were a little bigger. Maybe a piece of that to help integrate that. And you have a year to do it, not a month, not a week. No one has that kind of time, but a year to really focus on what is the one thing that I want to focus on for this next year. And then I also am a huge fan of handwritten appreciation notes when people are least expecting it. A tiny little note of gratitude to say, I see you. I witnessed something that you did well, and I want you to know. I want you to know that I see you. Quarterly connection or curiosity chats, especially if it's focused outside of the business. I want to get to know you. I want to know your challenges. I want to know what's your 1% and how are you bringing that to life inside of your daily existence. And then the last one is, I think, the most important. And I know we talk about self-care a lot. I think it has gotten a little diluted over time, but we can't give to each other. We can't give to our clients and our teams, our communities, if we are not well resourced in ourselves. And so sometimes I think the impact that we truly need is to give ourselves permission to take a nap or to go on that weekend trip or to do something meaningful for ourselves. And I cannot overstate how many people, particularly women, that I see that are running on empty. And I'm guilty of it too at times. Sometimes that's just what's required. But I try to recoup my energy in ways so that I can make sure that I'm being available for everyone else. Let's gonna take a quick look at this chat here. It feels good to receive the notes or acknowledgement of appreciation. Yeah, it really does. So, Tammy, I'm curious, when is the last time that you received a note of appreciation or gave a note of appreciation? And one more question as you're thinking about that for the whole group. My boss gives it often. That's great, Tammy. I love a good handwritten note, says Amy. I do too. I got this little book. It's quite small. It says Little Love Notes, and you can rip it out and it folds down to something about this size. And I will occasionally put one into my husband's lunch or send one to friends inside of a bigger envelope or just bring it to people that I meet out in the community or send my clients little love notes as well. And it's just a way again to say I see you. Yes, we're here in this professional world and there's a lot that we're responsible for. We have a lot on our plates individually and collectively, and I see you. I see you. I think being seen is one of the greatest gifts that we can give people, and that is making an impact in other people's lives. Okay. Any any questions that you have coming up for you at this time? And does it feel operational? What I mean is, I want you to walk away from today with several things. One, yes, this is a common trend and theme that folks are talking about. There's no need to hide from it. Let's have a constructive conversation. To operationalize it, we can find our 1% and help hold each other accountable to leveraging that 1% of our time and energy to a cause that really matters. To being realistic that we can't rewire the way that work is done today, not right now, not yet. Maybe we can in the future. You know, we have a lot of hope for AI, and some of us also not so much. So maybe there will be tools and ways of working differently in the future. Right now, we don't. And so also levity, comedy around the world that we exist, remembering that we are doing a lot of good work inside of the industry and the company that we work in. Lisa, there are many of us that are the between generation. We are operating between our aging parents and children and grandchildren, also at the height of our careers. What suggestions do you have? What an amazing question, because I do see a lot of folks that struggle with there's simply not enough time. There's simply not enough time for me to take care of all of the things personally and professionally on my plate. Okay, so here's what I suggest. One is this might not be what you want to hear, but setting down anything that is not imperative right now, setting down anything that feels extra. I continue to see this theme with women, this theme of I am pushed to my max. And yet I continue to say yes to all the things. I continue to say yes to all the social plans that come my way. I continue to raise my hand when a friend is in need, not just one friend, all the friends. I continue to say yes to every stretch project that is offered to me. I continue to say, yes, I will be there. Ashley, you're 100% describing me. Yes, this is so common. It comes from a really well-intentioned, loving, kind, considerate place. But is it strategic? No, it's really not. We can't take on everything. So, Lisa, to go back to your question, and Ashley, I'm speaking to you. We can't say yes to everything. Barb, no is a gift. Taking care of yourself then allows you to be strong enough to take care of taking care of yourself. Allows you to be strong enough to say yes, being better at saying no. Then I up feeling like I am in fight or flight mode. Okay. So going back to saying yes to all the things, I would really encourage and constructively challenge you all to make a no list today, tomorrow, by the end of the week. What are 5 things that you can say no to? Personally, here's a few things that I've started saying no to. I look at my calendar for the month and I say I will take on 3 social obligations because that's what I have energy for. It's not that I don't love my friends, it's not that I don't get and give energy that way. It's just that I don't want more than 3. And so I look at what's come in, what do I say yes to? After that, I say no. And I don't give an excuse. I don't need to defend or justify myself. I'm simply not available. Thank you. I'll see you next time. That might sound simple. It's also not easy for a lot of folks to look at their calendar and say, what do I need to say no to? Maybe I mentor 2 people instead of 5 people, and I help those other 3 find other mentors that are available. Maybe I don't raise my hand for everything. Maybe I think about what is my strategic visibility inside of my company to help elevate my career, and I focus on those 1 or 2 things. When I'm working with someone in an executive coaching capacity, one of the things that we work through is sorting and strategizing, essentially prioritizing. What is the most important thing that has to get done or that's going to give you the biggest lift personally and professionally? And then these other things that you might love and that you've become quite accustomed to doing, you're going to have to become well versed and empowered by a no. How many of you feel terror in your bodies when you hear me tell you to please find 5 things to say no to by the end of the week? Yeah, I know. And so I'm going to offer an invitation. At the end of the presentation, I include my email address. If it feels constructive to you to send me your list of 5 things by the end of the week, I will be happy to receive those and give you a quick reply of heard, received, go get it. But if you want some accountability and you feel like that would be productive for you, I'm happy to receive that. It's hard to set those boundaries, but it feels so good when you do. Katrina, yes, I that word boundaries for me, it's a nuance on words. I'm gonna shift it ever so slightly because I think when we talk about boundaries, it can set up this defensive, like get off my property sort of mentality and feel. Instead of saying, I construct a structure that works for me. I set up a structure that enables my best work. I create structures for myself that enable me to be invigorated and giving towards myself and others. I love that wording. Good. I'm so glad that resonates. So a lot of good questions coming in. I know that folks oftentimes want to hear like a framework, like here's the 5 things that you do, and time will be your friend forever. And if I ever can find that, not only will I share it, but I will sell that everywhere. I'm just kidding. But there isn't anything as clean and concise as that. I think that it is important, though, especially as a woman, to set the structures that are going to work for ourselves. And that changes all the time, right? It changes often week to week, certainly month to month and quarter to quarter, year over year. This is a consistent practice of looking at what am I solving for? So, what are your goals? I'm solving for having more time for my 1%, which means I can't do these 3 other things. I'm solving for giving more to people inside my company or community, and so I can't do this one other thing. I'm solving for having more time with my partner or my kids who are going off to college soon. I only have a year or 2 left with them. And so that's my priority that I'm solving for. I'm solving for getting the vice president title, which is going to require a lot of work. So I'm going to have to say no to this thing over here. It really is being specific, clear, practical, and actionable. I use those words a lot. And then you can create structures that enable those goals to see real progress instead of giving yourself to all of these different areas where the needle isn't moved so much. Any other questions that are coming up for you? Okay. So I am going to close us out here. By saying thank you. We got to the end. I really wanted to have some time for conversation that's so important to me in any presentation or room that I'm in. I see a comment. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Thank you for being here. I truly, truly mean that because you have a million things that you can be doing right now, and you chose to show up here for yourself and for all the people that get the benefit of your learning and growth as well. As I said, my email address is on here along with my website. I'm going to hand this out to Elaine and the team. And so you will have a copy of this. And now we're going to play a little game called Death by QR Codes. I'm kidding. But I think every presenter has a lot of QR codes these days. Oh, sorry for the formatting. Something happened there. This Letters to Leaders is my Substack that I write twice a month. If you'd like to sign up for my Substack email list, that's the way to do it. You can snap this QR code now or later when you get the presentation. Twice a month, so not a lot of spamming your inbox, but I write in a very authentic, real, kind of wry conversational way around what I'm seeing in the workplace, calling out some truths and giving some practical tips on what to do about that. I'm also launching Leaders Lounge in the summer. Leaders Lounge is an executive leadership development club. It's a membership that folks can join. There's a monthly challenge and theme. A lot of the things we talked about today are the kinds of conversations we'll have about what I'm seeing out there in the wild world of work and some things to do about it. So there will be coaching, training, and community. The QR code for that is there. One more QR code and then I'm done. And then this is my list for women's offers. I offer women's specific services like masterminds and retreats that are only offered to people who identify as ladies. And so if you'd like to be on the list for any women specific offer, this is the way to do that. And then a reminder that there are some really great webinars coming up. On August 18th, Julie Wild will be presenting. She's fantastic. Um, what the heck? Sorry about that. And then I'm back on November 10th. So please join us for that as well. And again, I just want to say thank you for bringing your energy, your time. The QR code is not working. Oh, you got it. It did work. Okay, fantastic. Okay, and Barb, thank you. Thank you for saying this was excellent. We have a couple of minutes left. Would love to hear feedback, questions, comments, anything that you'd like to share, anything that you'd like to ask.
And I'll chime in, Jen, to
Yeah.
remind folks you can raise your hand. I'm monitoring the participant list and happy to unmute you if it's just easier to say what's on your mind rather than feel like you have to enter it in the chat. And this has been great. I love it. So feel free to share, ladies. I know many of you, you're not bashful.
Which means use your voice, please. Catherine, was this recorded? Yes, this was recorded, and a copy will be distributed. Other comments? Helpful? Lingering thoughts? Open questions? Thank you, Amy. Okay, very
All right.
helpful. Great. Elaine and Sue, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Okay. Well, I'm not messing with the technology. You guys don't need to see me to know that I'm very grateful that you all joined us. Jen, you did an amazing job, which is not of any, it doesn't surprise me at all. We so
Thank
appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. And I hope that moving forward, we've all learned to just, learned ways that we can be impactful and that we are actually maybe more impactful than we realize as well. So, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that's it, ladies. Please join us for future webinars for our IAMB members. Keep an eye out for upcoming Young Agent Conference promotions. We'll be doing the Women's Breakfast, and we'd love to see all of you there. So that's it. Take care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Jen.